College affordability. How can the process of college be made more affordable? College is no longer considered a luxury but a necessity for work opportunities in an unstable global economy. The price of attending college at Morehead State. Tuition and fees are about $9,000, room and board is about $10,000, books and supplies are about $2,000, and other expenses are about $3,000. How can college be made more affordable? I've come up with 3 simple ways that this can be done. The first one is tuition deferment. The second one is the changes that colleges can make from within. And the third one is recognizing the relationship between education and state. Number 1, tuition deferment. Tuition deferment allows students to defer up to 75% of the cost of attending school and pay it back on a sliding scale percentage based on what the student defers and then later earns. This would mean that a professor who makes $20,000 will pay back far less than a surgeon who makes $200,000. It would make much more sense for a student to use tuition deferment rather than government-based loans because the interest rates would be significantly lower. College affordability from within. One way to make college more affordable is by making certain that students graduate and do it on time. A lot of students are taking classes that they think they need for their degrees, but they don't necessarily. This is a waste of time and money. If schools invest money to give students the support that help them plan the most efficient path to graduation, they will essentially graduate much earlier and less money will have been wasted. Another way is by altering transfer agreements. A lot of students take classes at one university and then something happens and they need to transfer to another one. A lot of times their credits won't transfer, and a lot of times it can be the exact same class that they've already taken and it can be called something different. Another way is by recognizing that not all learning happens within the classroom. This applies to people like EMTs and paramedics because a lot of their learning happens on the job. By focusing on what they can do from within, colleges can easily cut down on a good portion of the overinflation of attending university. Since the beginning, financial aid programs for college have been based primarily on the lower class students. However, there are colleges that are adjusting their financial aid requirements to make college more affordable for middle and upper class families. HOPE was a scholarship that was given out at a school in Georgia, and it allowed middle and upper class students to go to school for essentially free as long as they maintained a 3.0 GPA and received A's and B's in all their classes. However, whenever they first introduced this, it was being taken advantage of because students were using the Pell Grant as well as the HOPE scholarship to receive more money than what they needed. So there have been strict guidelines to ensure that this doesn't happen. First, the income cutoffs for eligibility for the subsidies are set high enough that less than 10% of filing households exceeds them. Second, allowable educational expenses are offset by any need-based aid received. As a result, a student who attends a typical 2-year college and is poor enough to receive the maximum Pell Grant receives no HOPE scholarship. The subsidy takes the form of a non-refundable tax credit so that a family too poor to pay taxes receives no HOPE scholarship. Education state. Since the 1980s, states have steadily cut higher education funding and colleges have steadily raised tuition to compensate. Education is a reserve power of the state, and therefore public policies play a primary role in its affordability. The amount of money that institution has is completely dependent on how much the state wants to fund for it. State funding for higher education is usually pushed to the bottom of the list of the state's priorities. State representatives need to realize that the more funding for colleges is an investment in a better future. What can we do as students? We can go out and vote for the people who make college affordability a primary concern. We can talk about it on social media, and we can protest about it, and just the most important thing is just getting the word out and making people realize how easy it truly is to make college more affordable. In conclusion, graduating on time is exceptionally important, and there's room for improvement for both the student and the faculty. Student funding for state funding for public higher education isn't likely to return to the comfortable levels that it was in the 1970s. Lowering the cost of college is a big task because states are primarily focused on lowering the cost of labor and healthcare. Colleges need to be conscious of how they invest their money and remember to make the students the number one priority. In conclusion, I found a quote that I think that really highlights this whole thing and really brings it all together. Howard Gardner wrote, "Perhaps the underlying cause of both smoking and cancer is stress. People who are under stress are more likely to smoke, and people who are under stress are more likely to develop cancer. Perhaps indeed, stress increases the likelihood that one will smoke and decreases the likelihood that one will be able to stop smoking. Taken together, these two factors increase the likelihood that one will contract cancer. No one has identified a primary variable that may be the underlying trigger of cancer, at least in the sense that elimination might significantly reduce the incidence of the disease."